Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of our review of Nintendo in 2018. I'm your host, Andre Siegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bender, John Cartwright, and Steve Bowling to discuss everything involving Nintendo month by month. If you missed part 1, make sure to check it out as we're picking up right where we left off at in July and going through the end of the year. So let's get right to it. And in July, which is right after E3, we had quite a few pretty big game releases. So that started off on July 13th with Octopath Traveler, and on that same day we got Captain Toad Treasure Tracker on Nintendo Switch and 3DS. On July 17th we had Sonic Mania Plus. July 20th brought us the Sky Skipper, an arcade archive that is finally being released in the US for the first time ever. It's basically an arcade that was almost lost to time. There were very few of them actually made. Then on July 24th we got Mega Man X Collection, and then July 27th, of course, the biggest game of the year being Go Vacation, which I don't think any of us actually played.
Nope.
That's pretty much it. What did you guys think of that month's selection?
I mean, it had Octopath Traveler, and that's that's automatically really cool. It's really funny to actually see that Octopath did better than Captain Toad, at least in the mindset. I didn't hear anybody talking about Captain Toad.
Captain Toad was kind of old news.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people already spoke about Captain Toad back when it came out on Wii U, so there's not really a whole lot more to say, but it did have brand new Odyssey levels, which were really cool. They were cool in a sense, actually. In another sense, they weren't cool. They kind of replaced a really cool part of the Wii U version, where it sort of connected 3D World and Captain Toad together, and then the Switch version just sort of retcons that. And the connection to Odyssey just isn't really as strong as it was in on Wii U. But Captain Toad's a brilliant game, and it's great to have it on Switch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better on Switch even. I like not having to deal with two screens to play a game that doesn't need it. So being able to use a pointer on the right Joy-Con is much better in my opinion.
Yeah, and on Wii U, whenever you move the gamepad, you would move the camera because there's gyro controls that you can't turn off, and the Switch version fixes that. That
actually might be the sole reason, the major reason I prefer it on Switch. That was such an annoying oversight. Yeah, I didn't try the 3DS one though, so I'm not quite sure if it's... Oh, did you? Alright, yeah. And just as good on 3DS?
It's really impressive actually, because they basically remade the game from scratch in the 3D Land engine, and it makes me wonder how much of an effort was this, because they remade the entire game, and it still looks really good. In fact, the 3D effect looks great in this game, because all the levels are basically small boxes that you're looking into. And so when you have the 3D slider up, you get that 3D land kind of effect, and it works really well for this game.
Wow, I'll have to go back and check that out.
Indeed. Well, I think the biggest news of the month, then, if Ash were here, he would say it was the Mega Man X Collection, but he's not. So perhaps the biggest news of the month is the fact that we got an adjustment to the Zelda timeline, both in Link's Awakening placement, but perhaps more importantly in that they placed Breath of the Wild on the timeline. I believe, Derek, you have to remind me, was that at the end of the timeline or at the start?
It was at the end of the timeline, but at the end in every single part of all three timelines.
Oh, that's so great. So non-committal.
I was gonna say, that's the only way it kind of makes sense, though, because when you scan all the various Link amiibos, you get all of their outfits, and where else could it be if it doesn't connect to all of the other timelines?
Are amiibos canon?
They are to me, Derek. They are to me.
In Steve's heart. I mean, that is kind of a good point.
Breath of the Wild kind of steps over itself a lot. I mean, there's elements of every single timeline in that game. There's elements that have Ocarina of Time. You have the Koroks from Wind Waker. You have Zora's coexisting with Rito's. It's so weird how they managed to get all this stuff together, and it's evident that Nintendo don't really care about timeline placement.
The timeline is totally just something that they put together for the fans, and only the fans. There's no way they even consider it before they make anything.
It's ironic they put it together for the fans when arguably it's tearing the fans apart at times.
Just for a minute, how sad is it that no matter which timeline you like the most, it all ends with Ganon nearly destroying the entire world and Link getting put into a 100-year coma?
It's so true. Wow.
That's the funny thing. You hear about Nintendo's official placement, a lot of times you're like, no, that can't be right, because to me, there was enough evidence in Breath of the Wild to just easily put it in the Twilight Princess timeline. And they've pulled from other races into other sections as in before. So that having Koroks there and having the Rito there, along with the Zora, did not bother me whatsoever. It was sort of that. Or you can go with the convergence theory if you want to do that whole thing. But it still doesn't make sense because you have a very nice, tidy ending for the Wind Waker set. Because, and with Spirit Tracks. And it's just sort of weird that they decided to say that it all applies, it all works. This is maybe convergence, who knows? It just seemed neat and tidy because they just specifically mentioned Twilight Princess and the other games in that timeline. I don't know. It seems like they overcomplicated it.
This isn't actually the final thing we heard this year of the Zelda timeline, because later in the year, they actually said that they're never actually going to reveal the official placement of Breath of the Wild because it's up to the player. They get to choose where it takes place. So by putting it in all three timelines, I think they're just kind of saying it's up to you. Like, it doesn't necessarily take place in all three timelines, but it's whatever you want it to be in.
Which is kind of interesting in a way. I mean, normally I'd say that's a cop-out, and it's still a cop-out.
Yeah.
However, I do kind of like it does kind of loosely fit into the open-ended nature of Breath of the Wild. It's whatever you want it to be, right? So it kind of makes sense on that level. And I almost wonder they're treating it as like a soft reboot of the timeline, right? Where they can kind of start fresh now with maybe every sequel spawning from the Breath of the Wild timeline, and they can kind of branch out more logically now that they kind of know what they're doing, hopefully.
That won't happen.
Because before, probably not. Probably end up in an even bigger mess than we have currently, but... I mean, for me personally, I really don't care. I have never really cared where in the timeline things have happened, especially once it became clear that Nintendo's making this crap up as they go. So, it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Not really.
Yeah, no, they're still going to be amazing games no matter what, so
That's
it's all
exactly
good.
it. Alright, let's go and move on to August, where we had a grand total of one first-party game being WarioWare Gold. So it's a good thing that it actually is quite a good game. I very much enjoyed it, even if a lot of it was previous recycled content. If this is your first WarioWare game, I don't think you could choose a better starting point. This was just a fantastic collection of all these micro games with some pretty well-done cutscenes, including they're fully voiced this time, which is nice. And yeah, I mean, you know what you're getting into. It's just a best of WarioWare collection, or WarioWare collection, yeah.
But do you know what the best part of those cutscenes are? Is you can dub them yourself. I love that feature so much.
So great.
The presentation of WarioWare Gold seems to be the best part of it. Like, the mini games micro games are great and all that stuff. I haven't picked it up myself, but I had a bit of a curiosity. But it's so hard to go back to the 3DS and pick up games like this. But I loved all the voice acting they made. It fleshed out those characters so much and really had some great comedic timing with a lot of them, or just really highlighted how strange a lot of the situations were. So I don't know. I really dug it.
Yeah, it is hard to go back to 3DS, but at the same time, this is a good 3DS game.
True.
Like, I don't think this would work on Switch. It's games that use the microphone, games that use both screens. They really went all out with all the 3DS's features. And yeah, I agree. I'd like to have a WarioWare game on Switch, but Gold just works on 3DS.
No, I totally agree it should be on Switch, and I think this should lean into the multiplayer side of the Switch with its two Joy-Cons. You can have simultaneous multiplayer, which, because, I mean, obviously multiplayer's been a factor before, including on the Wii one, but that was all, I believe, like, you all took turns.
Right,
So
yeah.
it'd be cool they mix that up a little bit. And the Joy-Cons also could give them a lot of opportunities, similar to the Wii Remote as well. They could bring back the Form Baton, I believe it was called.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And I guess WarioWare's kind of perfect for using the IR camera too, because still
That's true.
today barely any games have used that thing apart from Labo.
I love how, like, when we saw Lab, we're like, oh, that makes complete sense. Like, this is why the camera's here, and then it sells, like, nothing. So,
Yeah.
I still need to justify it.
I will say it's good to have WarioWare back after Game & Wario.
Oh yeah.
God, yes. Game of Wario had a couple of really great ideas in there, but they were so short-lived, and the rest were not worth it at all. So, the best thing to come with Game of Wario is the Game of Wario stage in Smash Brothers, as well as the 9-volt mode that they made in that game that also came back in WarioWare Gold, where you play WarioWare games inside WarioWare while trying to avoid your mom catching you in the act. It's really fun. That's a really clever mode. So,
It's one of my favorites in all of the WarioWare series.
Nice.
Alright, let's go ahead and move on to a month that had quite a bit more going on, being September, and I can't, and even though this has nothing to do with Nintendo specifically, I can't go on without mentioning the fact that on September 1st, we reached 1 million subscribers, which is just a really exciting moment for us. So yeah, that was really cool.
It snuck up on us. It came a lot quicker.
That's always how it is with these milestones. We're like, oh, we got plenty of time to prepare, and nope. I was in the hotel room at like 5 p.m. in the afternoon while I was at PAX trying to finish up a video we made for the occasion that wasn't quite ready to go and took way longer than I thought. So I spent a whole day in that stupid final video to get it up. Oh, and actually, Steve, you were even there with us to celebrate the occasion.
Yeah, I was not officially part of the crew yet, but I happened to be couch surfing with you guys, and managed to get caught quite literally with my pants down.
Oh, God.
That's right. Yeah, we came back to the room to record the live stream, and you were just getting dressed to, I think, for the day. So that was kind of amazing. Good times.
On the live stream, though.
Thankfully, not on the live. We hadn't started yet, thankfully. So that would have gone banned. It probably got us banned from YouTube forever. So
I would take care of that personally.
all right, moving on. On September 7th, we got Yokai Watch Blasters on Nintendo 3DS. September 14th brought us Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country, which, by the way, has sold 1.53 million copies as of September 30th, or maybe October 30th, I believe. September 14th brought us the final Labo kit so far. There may be more, but this is the last we know of, being the Labo Vehicle Kit. September 18th brought us the Nintendo Switch version of Undertale. September 25th had Valkyria Chronicles 4. September 27th had Nintendo's latest mobile game, being Dragalia Lost. And on September 28th, we got Dragon Ball Fighters. So quite a few games with some good third-party representation there, as well as an indie title in the form of Undertale. What did you guys end up playing or recalling from that month?
So for me, I spent most of September playing Torna the Golden Country. I really liked Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and the prequel DLC was really fun. I'd love to say it was Fighters. That was the game I was probably most hyped for. It's an excellent port, and it's an amazing game, but it came out like at the end of the month, so I spent the last, couple days playing it. I only recently started Valkyria Chronicles 4, and it is utterly fantastic. Probably one of the prettiest third-party games on the Switch, too.
Mm-hmm. I spent most of the month playing Xenoblade 2 Torna of the Golden Country as well, and it is so impressive. Like, other DLC that Nintendo have done feels distinct, like Octo Expansion feels distinct from Splatoon 2, but Torna is basically a new game. It's basically Xenoblade Chronicles 2.5. There's a new combat system, there's a new Titan, a new story, and it's to the point where you can basically play the game if you're a newcomer. Like, you don't need to play Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to play this game. And I ended up having, in some ways, more fun with this than the main game. In other ways, though, not quite so much. Like, there's a very tedious side quest system where you basically need to perform a certain amount of side quests to progress the story, and I could have done without that. But everything else was just brilliant. Torna is a must-play if you're an RPG fan.
Ironically, because I was on vacation, I did not get a chance to play or cover Torna, because after that, it was on with October and beyond, with just game after game to cover. So I was never able to get back and play Torna. Now, I did get to play about half of Valkyria Chronicles 4, which I enjoyed immensely, but still, just of other things happening, which I'm pretty sure included a ton of Smash coverage. Wasn't able to finish that game either. So it was one of those things where September was filled with games I wanted to play and didn't get to play any of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's always tons in Smash going on. Was this a month of King K. Rool? Was he announced in August?
No, I think a little bit. I think it was announced in August. Yeah, late August.
Or I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Okay.
So that's when we got K. Rool and Castlevania and all that.
Andre had to go back and check his diary for that entry.
You know it. How do you know about that, Steve?
You don't want to know.
The game I spent the most time playing actually this month was there's two, but the one I probably spent the most time overall was a Labo Vehicle Kit, both in the building and actually playing process. And it's too bad this one didn't come out earlier, because I think this one had maybe the better chance of selling the concept of Labo, because it actually was a proper game. And those little cardboard contraptions actually do a pretty good job of making it feel like you're piloting these vehicles. So it's something I think a lot of people are going to miss out on, just because Labo kind of ran out of steam by that point. But it's a surprisingly fun game. And then I also played Undertale for the first time. I'm finally going to play this game after all I've heard about it. And it was a pretty fun experience, even if I have to replay it now to get the full experience, I believe. But I liked what I played, so...
Nice. I will say the Labo Vehicle Kit felt weird in Mario Kart 8. Like, they gave it the weirdest control scheme they possibly could. It does not work as you think it might. Yeah.
It doesn't work at all. Yeah, because it had you... I'm trying to remember now. How did... Like, there were some functions that couldn't... Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the pedal wasn't to accelerate. Like, I can't remember exactly. It was something weird going on.
It was Power Slide, I think, or something?
That's right. Yeah, the pedal was Power Slide.
That's
what a bad idea.
We were talking about this earlier, John. It's still insane to me that Europe has still not gotten Dragalia Lost.
Yeah, I don't know what this game is. It's done fairly well. It doesn't seem to have quite touched the Nintendo mobile games, but yeah, Dragalia Lost has not launched in Europe. You can get it in Japan, you can get it in America, but there's just this whole part of the world that this game just isn't out in for some reason.
That is bizarre.
I played a little bit of it, but boy, is it a data hog. It sucks up a lot. But the thing is, it's very pretty. It's fun in its own way. There's a lot to do in it, but it's still a mobile game, so I have not been able to stay hooked.
Yeah, I mean, I played at a preview event, and I liked what I played, and I saw the potential of it for mobile games, but I'm not a huge mobile gamer, just partly for the form factor. I'm just not a huge fan of playing games on my phone, but also just for the general gameplay. Like, I can enjoy it in short, I enjoy it in a short burst, but I don't know if I could stick with it for the long haul, and I didn't in this case. But apparently the game evidently is doing pretty well, I think. I think it started slow, but it's been picking up. And I think it's been, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but I think it's doing pretty well for Nintendo at this point. So it'll be interesting to see where they take that game, or potentially even that series.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see Fire Emblem Heroes is doing so well. Like, whenever they talk about that game, it's just insane numbers. I kind of stopped playing that game after a while, but it seems like people are just hooked on it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played it in so long, but Nintendo's mobile games are doing relatively well. They're holding up. Especially Pokemon Go. That is probably doing the best it's ever done since its big launch. And, I mean, it had its whole thing where everybody was like, what the heck's going on when they did the whole Meltan appearing in Go, which we still don't know if that was an accident or not.
There's actually a funny thing. Niantic are now worth more than Square Enix. They're worth more than Capcom. Based on this one game, just on Pokemon Go, they are worth more than these companies that have been around for, like, decades now. It's absolutely insane.
And I believe it was this year that Pokemon Go reached the second highest peak it's ever had since, or the top peak it's had since launch. So it's come back with a resurgence thanks to trading and also PvP now, which I don't know how well that's doing.
Yeah, I don't know if PvP's helping. Trading helped a lot, and I think Let's Go helped a lot.
Let's Go absolutely helped a lot. So that was pretty neat, having revealing a new Pokemon through Pokemon Go. That is a pretty big deal, I think. We also had a couple other big things happen this month, or at least one big thing rather, and that's Nintendo Switch Online launched, which has been a bit of a controversial program even since its inception, I think. And it's still causing, like, there was a whole thread on etc. with people being very upset with how the service works right now. So I guess we should do a quick check on how we're all feeling about the service in general and what we think of it up to this point.
I use it to play Smash.
Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't care really. I mean, it's so cheap that it's inoffensive to me, and I just don't think about it. I just use it to play Splatoon, Smash, and Mario Kart, and that's really it.
I think you said it. Like, it's not an exciting service, but I also don't think it's unfair for what you pay. Like, all I want to do is play Mario Kart and Smash Brothers Online. It lets me do that, and it lets me do it pretty well. Now, I understand that's not the case for everyone. I know some people have connection issues. I know Ashley had trouble with Smash Brothers, for instance. For me, though, it's been working fine for the most part. Do I wish there were more features? Sure. Again, for the price, it's like, I just don't think about it. Like, I'm not outraged over it, which some people wanted us to be. I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's fine. It exists. It's there. I'm not upset by the few dollars I throw its way every month, or if you spread out what we paid in advance over the course of a year. And yeah, I mean, hopefully they keep improving it, sure, but for right now, it's like, it's like my phone bill. I don't get excited over it, but I'm glad I have it.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to put it.
When you compare it to other subscriptions too, like PlayStation Plus, that obviously has a lot more features, but it's also 3 times the price, and I never
Right.
feel good about paying $60 to play games online. That's mostly what I do with these subscriptions, because when I get PlayStation Plus games, I don't have the time to play them, really. When I pay for PlayStation Plus, I'm playing to play games online. That's nothing else I really want out of it. So I'd rather pay $20 than $60. And obviously, there are differences. There are more differences than that. Just because it's so cheap, I don't really mind.
Yeah, I don't have strong feelings about Nintendo Switch Online either way. The NES app is just there. It's not something I use, but it's a cool fringe benefit. Online gameplay is kind of a given. It's not something I think about. The only thing I'd have to say that really bothers me about Nintendo Switch Online is the atrociously bad voice chat implementation.
Yeah.
Most Nintendo games, I don't really need or care for voice chat, but I feel like Splatoon is made actively worse by not having it. It's the one game on the Switch that I feel like would be much better if you could communicate with your team with more than just, the 4 little preset options. And
Two preset options.
Or, I'm sorry, 2. You're right. So, And those aren't really adequate.
Booyah's not cutting it for you?
Booyah doesn't work for me when I'm trying to tell someone to flank the enemy.
You are absolutely right, Steve. But I also think we're in a different era when it comes to voice chat than we were with Xbox Live when that first came around. Most people speak in party chats now. Most people, and Switch doesn't have that across the board, but a lot of people just go to Discord. Like when I play games on PS4, I don't actually use PS4 party chat. I just use Discord, and that's exactly what I do on Switch. And that's not an excuse. Like Switch should have that stuff built in. But just on my experience, it doesn't really affect me personally because I'm just using other alternative methods to voice chat.
Now, see, that's interesting for me because on Switch I will use Discord because it's the only good option available. But on PS4 or Xbox Live, I actually do use bespoke chat functionality just because it's easier for me to not have to use a secondary device. I can do it all from within my console. And I get that for some people that's not going to be the case. They'd much rather use Discord. I totally understand the benefits, but I just want that functionality baked into the OS.
That should be the expectation of the console, to have the actual ability to do that. It's just that I think today that's not the only option, and if people aren't happy with the Switch's functionalities, there are other ways.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Like I said, I have my own homebrew Discord server just for Switch Online, so yeah, there's definitely a way around it, and it works. I just wish we had more options.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to October, where we had a pretty big slew of game releases. On October 2nd, we had Mega Man 11. On October 5th, we had what might be the first part of a Nintendo trilogy that came at the end of the year. A pretty big trilogy. Being Super Mario Party, which by the end of the month has sold 1.5 million copies. So it's kind of a resurgence, a return to form, really, for the franchise. October 12th brought us Luigi's Mansion 3DS. On the same day, we also got The World Ends With You Final Remix. A few days later, on October 16th, we got Starlink Battle for Atlas, which included Star Fox content. On October 19th, John, we got Dark Souls Remastered. And that's actually it in terms of major releases. So yeah, how do you guys feel about that selection?
I was happy that Dark Souls finally came out. we kind of cut our story brief there about the delays. So basically, it was meant to come out in April, but then it was delayed to summer, and then it was delayed to October.
Yep.
And came out the same day as a collection.
Oh yeah, that's true too. On PS4 and Xbox One, they had a trilogy collection, where you could get the entire Dark Souls trilogy in one box set, which on the exact same day as Dark Souls Remastered for the Switch. So that kind of questioned the value of this port. But the Switch version did come with an amiibo. You got the Solaire Restorer amiibo, which is one of the few third-party amiibo. And its use is kind of limited, but it's still really fun. It's just a nice little thing to collect for. But yeah, as a whole, I think October was a really, really strong month. I thought Mega Man, Mario Party, Dark Souls, Starlink, What Ends With You, all really solid games.
For me, this is the best month of the year. And that's saying a lot, because every other month is actually pretty good. But Mega Man 11 was huge. I'll rep it for Ash since he's not here. But Super Mario Party was surprisingly fantastic. Starlink was really fun, if not a little repetitive towards the end. And we got finally the 3D version of Luigi's Mansion we've been waiting for since the GameCube. And right. For me, that's huge. That's like a little lost piece of history that Nintendo's thrown us.
I think a lot of people are sleeping on Luigi's Mansion 3DS, probably because it is a port of a 20-year-old game. But it's well done, It's not... I mean, I think I still prefer the GameCube one overall, just for some of the better graphical effects. But some of the things the game does better on handheld, I really do appreciate. Like, they completely redid the look of the mansion, and it looks a lot better now, I think. It's a lot more detailed. And the 3D effect, as Steve was saying, it's cool to see the game in 3D. I mean, granted, we had a little taste of that, of course, in Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which is, the sequel to the game. But it's neat to see the original reformatted in this way. So, and then, of course, Super Mario Party has been a surprising amount of fun. Even my parents are playing it. We do the river mode, and it's something it's just super accessible. I love that. My parents had a really fun time trying to work with me to get through this mode and make it to the end of the river, and we finally did it after 4 attempts. So yes.
And the computer players are still heartless monsters.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's so accessible that Derek's grandma played it with him on Christmas.
That's right.
Yeah, she cannot do controllers at all. I was very grateful every time there was a game that didn't require her to move, because anytime she had to use the control stick, she was lost. She can't wrap her head around it to how to move with the thumbstick and have a character follow in the same direction. It ended up a lot of fun. She enjoyed the board game aspect. She was getting into it like when the computer players were cheating her or doing other stuff. Like she was having a lot of fun. I just wish I could select some of the mini games so it'd be a little bit better for her, but still a good time.
I think Starlink 2 is an interesting game to talk about because on the one hand, I think it's extremely impressive visually at least. Like I think it goes nearly, like, if you're not doing A to B comparison, it looks almost as good as the Xbox and PS4 versions. Again, at a glance, I know there were cutbacks, but my point is it's an extremely impressive game visually, and I like that they brought in Star Fox. Like, it's nice that they found some use for the IP besides ignoring it. Even if they didn't add a ton of Star Fox-related content, I appreciate that it's there. It's just too bad that, one, the game is overall very repetitive, and two, it didn't end up selling anything apparently. I think it's a bomb. So
yeah, I mean it was $20 a week ago. So
geez.
with the toys. So
Jeez.
it's kind of sad because I mean it is a fun game. It's really pretty, and like you said, it's a bit repetitive, like we both said actually. But it's not so bad that it should be this discounted this fast.
The problem with the Starlink is just the world, the characters themselves are not exactly the most engaging. It's late to the party when it comes to the Toy Story Life stuff. It's actually better to get the digital version so you have more content.
Yep.
It makes no sense to get the actual toys if you're going to play this game. And if it didn't have the Star Fox content, I don't think anybody would really care. Everybody I saw actually touch this game always played the Switch version and they always played as Fox.
And like when you think back to the year before the Star Fox content was announced, Starlink was at E3 the year before that, and no one cared.
No one knew.
Yeah, exactly. No one
Yeah.
knew. You guys kind of said it all, but to me, Starlink has Ubisoft open world design, and by that I mean they build these fantastic worlds, but then they put this like just a couple of missions in them, and then spread those missions out throughout the entire game. I don't want to generalize too much because they do some great games, but basically all Ubisoft open world games have this kind of similar formula, and Starlink is no exception.
Oh, and that's not even the main problem. It's not that it shares that formula. The problem is that the formula is the same on every planet you visit. So the concept of being able to fly from one world to another is awesome. I love that, and visually they did a great job making them all look distinct. It's just that when it comes to the gameplay, you visit one planet, you visited them all. There's nothing different about each one. And that's where it starts to get very repetitive, and where you realize the differences really are just skin deep. And it's too bad because there really is potential there, I think, for something grander. I just don't think we're going to see that now with how well it's been selling or how well it hasn't been selling.
Yeah, but pretty much.
It also makes me worry for what it means for Star Fox.
Well, fortunately, it didn't have anything to do with Nintendo. I think it's one of those things like, well, we didn't lose anything, but if it done really well, it's like, maybe we should look into Star Fox again.
Come on, Star Fox Grand Prix. I guess we'll be talking about that in 2019.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Indeed. There were a couple news stories I want to touch on real quick. The developers from Monolith Soft did say that there were no plans to report Xenoblade Chronicles X for Nintendo Switch, which I think might be a bit of a bummer for people who are hoping for such. However, it was announced that Resident Evil 0, Remake, and RE4 are all coming to the Switch in 2019. My dad is stoked. I told him about RE4, he's like, yes, I can't wait. And then also we found out at the end of the month that the Switch had sold almost 23 million units as of September 30th. That means it had officially outsold the GameCube's lifetime sales, which is crazy. I mean, because it's kind of easy to forget that the GameCube really didn't sell well at the time, like at all. And the Switch has already outsold it in just 18 months. So I don't know what that says more about, the Switch or the GameCube. So it's still cool. It's still cool news all the same.
Yeah. It's going to be so cool that your dad can play Breath of the Wild and then go straight to Resident Evil 4 on the same console.
Right? And actually, it is kind of ironic that we found out that RE4 is coming to the Switch along with in the same month that Luigi's Mansion came to the Switch, in the same month that we found out that the Switch outsold the GameCube. So this is kind of like the GameCube's way of giving back to the Switch, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm outrageously excited for Resident Evil 4 on the Switch.
Hell yes.
We couldn't tell.
I've bought so many ports of that game, but none of them have been portable, apart from that mobile version, but we don't talk about that one. But it's going to be so exciting to have basically what could be the definitive version. Because I still love the Wii version. I think that has the best of both worlds, with the GameCube's content, with the PlayStation 2 extras, and some motion controls if you like them. And then the HD versions are great too. But I think the Switch version has the potential to have all of those features in one package, and it'd be portable. So yeah, I'm really excited for Resident Evil 4 next year.
It's going to be good. I'm excited for it too. I haven't played since the Wii, but I'll definitely be doubling down on it.
Yeah, I'm same with Steve. I haven't picked up Resident Evil 4 since the Wii because I felt like that was the definitive version at the time because it felt so good to use those aiming controls and honestly made the game a bit easier, but it was still a lot of fun. And I'll probably even pick up the remake because that's still excellent. Zero, we'll see.
Yeah, Zero is a bit iffy, but I'll probably still buy it though. Do we believe Monolith Soft when they say there's not going to be a Xenoblade Chronicles export?
That's so hard to say. Like, I could see them just pushing forward and doing their next game and not worrying about it because it would take a lot of effort to get X on there, I guess, but maybe not. I don't know because they used a lot of the gamepad for like resource management a lot of the times and how each quadrant had its own use. So I can kind of buy it, but because there's no way to have that screen go up one to the TV screen. It was locked to the Wii U gamepad. So maybe that effort is more than we think or something like that. It's so hard to say, but I want X on the Switch. I think it deserves it.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 basically broke records for the series. It's the best-selling game in the series. So I think Nintendo are probably looking at the Xenoblade series and saying, we need to make some ports here. We need to invest more in this franchise. So I can't possibly see them looking at X and say, nah, don't port that. I think they're working on it right now.
Yeah, I don't think them saying it's not planned really means much of anything. I mean, they wouldn't tell us if it were planned, so unless they were ready to announce it. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't hold out hope for it necessarily, but at the same time, I don't think it means it's not coming. That there's no chance it will come to the platform. So
honestly, with the success of Xenoblade 2 and the popularity of Shulk, I honestly think we might see the original Xenoblade on the Switch before X.
I'd like that.
I mean, I'd be totally down for it, but
especially in HD.
That
would be really nice. Definitely a step up from the 3DS version.
That's for sure.
That's for sure.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to November, where we had two big releases, or three, if you want to count it that way. On November 2nd, we had Diablo 3 Eternal Collection, which is always good to see, more of those big third-party games. Then November 16th, we got Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, which by the end of the first week had sold over 3 million copies worldwide. So contrary to some naysayers, it did extremely well. So yeah, how are we feeling about those, I suppose, at this point?
It's a lean month, but it's the perfect lean month because Pokemon Let's Go is just, like I said, it's one of my favorite games of the year, possibly my favorite game overall this year, and Diablo 3 was surprisingly good on the Switch. When I played demos of it at various shows, I didn't like it. I felt like it just was not well suited to the console, but once I actually had the final build and played it at home without somebody trying to guide me through, I found that I had a really good time with it. It is a fantastic fit for the Switch. I was completely wrong, and I couldn't be happier to say that.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't so big on Diablo 3 as a game in itself. The way it suited itself to Switch was great though. It's a very good game just to pick up and play in handheld form, and they added a little bit of value by giving you like a Ganondorf transmog. But yeah, that's just added value really. You don't buy the game for that stuff. Just the way they transitioned it to work on Switch was really good. And it's crazy to see a Blizzard game on a Nintendo platform. So I think the last one might have been a GBA port of Lost Vikings, and I think before that it was StarCraft 64. So it's been a while.
Yeah. I mean, I've not picked it up, but because I pretty much got my fill of Diablo 3 when it released on PC, but I have a friend who always gets a Nintendo console mainly just to play the Zelda games, but he picked up Diablo 3 on the Switch and he's actually been really enjoying it. And he was always the one that swore off getting console versions of it because he had put so much time into the PC version and you couldn't transfer over the data, but for whatever reason he was okay with doing it for the Switch version, and he's been enjoying it, which is really cool to see. I probably still won't pick it up though. I just don't have the time, and like I said, I got my fill.
How are you feeling, Derek, now about Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, now that we're almost a couple of months out of past its release?
It is a good but unexciting remake. Like, it does a lot of really smart things with their changes, like the having the Pokemon on the world map great idea. I was not sure about that at first because it seems to take away from the fun of it, but I liked how they still made them rare. You still had to look around for it, and it made it a lot easier. Like, ooh, that one, I want to get that one. It made collecting them a lot more fun. I like the way they cleaned up the story in a lot of cases. They like how they fleshed out some things, added some new things. It made it a little bit more modern and interesting in that way. But the game still suffers from being a little bit too easy and redundant. Pokemon is always easy. It's never that much of a challenge. But the redundancy of seeing, especially if you've played this game before, it does kind of wear on it. It depends. It could be a great way home, or if you've been playing Pokemon like crazy or every year, you've seen all this before and it's really not as exciting as it could be for you. There's a lot to really enjoy about Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but it's one of those games where I enjoyed it, but I have no need to return to it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too. Like, I had a great time with it, but apart from being able to find wild legendary Pokemon, I didn't feel like there was any hook to keep me playing. Like, in Sun and Moon, I could go around and still discover more and more Pokemon, or I could do other post-game activities, or battle online. But in Let's Go, there's not really much more to see once you've beaten the league. Like, you can go back and find some mystery trainers and also the master trainers. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to keep you going, and obviously because these are the original 151, there's not really an excitement factor to hunting down all the Pokemon. And even online's a bit funny, because in online you can't battle with strangers, and when you want to battle with friends you have to put in a 4-digit code. But because there's only 4 digits in the code, there's a chance that you won't be partnered with your friend, and you might be partnered with someone else who put in the same 4-digit code, because it's so unsecure. So online's kind of a mess, and there isn't much to do in the post-game. But the actual game itself is fun. It's what Derek said, it's fun, but easy.
Unfortunately, the multiplayer, it really is a big brother little sibling game, because, I mean, it makes an easy game even easier.
Uh-huh.
I think I've mentioned it a few times. Let's Go is probably my favorite first-party game of the year, and I'm okay with having a game that's a really great one-time experience. I don't necessarily need a game to keep me coming back to just really fall deeply in love with it. And I think because I'm an older guy, Let's Go kind of scratches that nostalgic spot for me while introducing some new things to the Pokemon formula that I really want to see stay around in the mainline games. I think Let's Go improved on Pokemon in a lot of ways, and I'm hoping that Gen 8 carries some of those improvements. But yeah, it was I really, really enjoyed it. It's not a game I'll probably go back to, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what lessons Game Freak takes from the success of this game and how they incorporate it into future games. Like, I wonder if they started working on taking some of the elements from Let's Go and putting them into Gen 8 already, or if they're going to hold off because they didn't have time to. Like, they were waiting to see if Let's Go was a success before trying to incorporate them into the mainline game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Gen 8 and Gen 9, and we can talk about that more, once we get into 2019. Yeah, Let's Go myself, like I've said before, I loved Pokemon Blue specifically back in the day. Then I completely had my fill. I never felt the need to go back and catch more of them. I tried, I just couldn't do it anymore. It started to feel repetitive to me. So I was wondering if Let's Go would pull me back in. And while I enjoyed like the few hours I spent with it, I put it down for some reason. I probably had another game coming I had to work on. And I just haven't felt the need to go back. I can see why a lot of people, like, why it appeals to a lot of people, but for me, it's like, yeah, it's still Pokemon. So, which is also people need, which is totally fine. For me, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I need to catch them all still at this point. We had some news stories as well that came out this month. First off is the fact that for Smash Brothers, the DLC has already been locked in. Apparently, they already knew what it was at this point. And they also mentioned the fact that Nintendo themselves were the ones who decided who the characters would be, or at least provided Sakurai with the list of the characters, and it was up to Sakurai to see whether they were feasible or not to make them work in the game, of course. And initially, for me, I found that concerning. It's like, oh man, what's this mean? Is every character just going to be like a flavor of the month character to promote Nintendo's upcoming games or a game that was recently released? But then we found out in December that, maybe I'm going to hit myself here, but that the first character was going to be Joker from Persona. And that kind of put me at ease, even though I'm not a Persona guy. I'm like, I like that it's a character I would have never expected, and I'm hoping that's the case for the other 4 as well. And again, we'll discuss more of that going into 2019. The other news story for the month, though, which is probably more noteworthy on a worldwide scale, is that we got the first trailer for Detective Pikachu, the Detective Pikachu live-action movie. And against all odds, to me at least, I think it looks rather good so far. It's like, I actually want to see more of this movie. I can see myself enjoying this movie legitimately and not it just being a parody, not treating it as a parody of itself.
That's a good takeaway there, because this could very easily be a parody of itself, but it still feels very grounded in the world of Pokemon. The way they shock you as well is I think that's what's made it viral. Like when you see what Jigglypuff looks like, what Pikachu looks like, what Charizard looks like, you want to share that stuff. And on the same day, or at least within the same time span, Pixar were teasing Toy Story 4. And absolutely nobody cared about that because it was just so vanilla and didn't tease anything. Whereas everyone was just talking about how fluffy this Jigglypuff looks.
Oh, I love Fluffy Jiggly too. It's great.
Over Christmas, I showed the trailer to my nephew, who enjoys Pokemon, but he doesn't play the games or anything like that. He just likes Pikachu as a character. And I asked my sister if he had seen the trailer yet, and she's like, no. So I sat him down, showed him the trailer, and he's like, I want to see that. He really wants to see it. He's, I think, 5 right now. So he's just right in that time frame. And when Pikachu was on screen with the hat, he's like, Detective Pikachu. And I'm like, I looked at it. I was like, did he play the game or know that? He's like, no, just looks like a detective. Okay, that's great. It
Wow.
worked out perfectly. So I think he's really gonna want to see that now. And I'm actually my biggest concern for this movie was actually just its placement, because I thought it was going to be so close to Avengers Endgame, and that's not the case because Endgame's coming out a lot sooner. So that gives May basically to Detective Pikachu, and I think this could be really huge. I think the second trailer is going to really fully sell people, or be like, I don't know, but I think people are leaning very positively on this trailer, and I'm actually really excited to see it.
Marvel totally moved the Avengers Day to get further away from Pikachu, because they were originally May as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the week before, right.
Right.
I was really pleasantly surprised by the trailer. The aesthetic is good. The story seems interesting. It's something that I feel that, young kids are really going to eat up. I gotta admit, I still want Danny DeVito as Detective Pikachu, but I will take Ryan Reynolds. He did a really good job so far from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the news that the official Twitter account for Detective Pikachu apparently follows, I think, 8 other accounts, all of which I believe are related to the movie in some way, except for one. And that account is Danny DeVito.
Oh, I did. I did.
So great.
I'm honestly really hopeful that something happens in the movie and Pikachu is very briefly voiced by Danny DeVito, just to make the internet happy. Oh, it would.
What if Danny DeVito is the main villain of this movie?
Oh, wow. There you go.
What if he voiced a Pokemon that's a villain? Who would you voice? What Pokemon besides Pikachu would be a good fit for Danny DeVito?
Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god, that'd be so great. I'm down for all of this. Let's go ahead and move on to December, the final month of the year, and we only have 2 releases listed here, one of which got completely steamrolled by the other. So on December 7th, we had Katamari Damacy Reroll, and then of course that's also the day of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which went on to sell 5 million units worldwide in 3 days, which nearly outsold the entirety of Smash Bros. On Wii U, which is all kinds of mind-blowing. So yeah, I don't know how much more we can say about these games that we haven't already. Well, maybe not Katamari, but Smash Brothers. We've already talked so much about this game. We've had multiple discussions since its release even. Do we have anything else besides what a massive success the game has been? I mean, I don't think any of us doubted it would be a success, but maybe we've been surprised by how successful it has been so far, seemingly.
That's the funny thing with Smash, is that it has this phenomenon around it where people are always super excited for it. It always ended up, when you looked at the sales units, maybe a vocal minority. Not that it wasn't selling well, because getting over 1 million units is always an awesome achievement. But when you compare it to stuff like Mario Kart or a new Super Mario Brothers game or something like that, Smash Brothers was always just not quite the top, despite what you might think about this massive crossover. And this is the first time it feels like Smash Ultimate is a legitimate, full-blown success on the level of those other games.
Absolutely. I mean, prior to this, I probably would have predicted that Let's Go would have been the better performing game. But Smash Ultimate just completely demolished it. 5 million in 3 days. I think, was Pokemon Let's Go 3 million in that time span?
3 million in a week.
Oh, right, exactly. So, yeah, it really is a phenomenon. And maybe it's because Switch didn't have all that many big first-party 2018 games. But this one just feels like such a milestone. It's like, if you don't have Smash Ultimate on Switch, then it feels like you're just missing something.
Missing out.
Yeah.
Out of all the games that have released for the Switch, Smash Ultimate is one of the handful that are must-haves. If you have the console, you have to have this on it. I would say that maybe Breath of the Wild and Odyssey are the only two others that I can think of offhand that are just absolutely required. But, it's important to note that, and again, I'm not calling Ultimate a Wii U port, but games that were on the Wii U have been performing better on the Switch, and for a lot of folks that didn't play Smash Wii U, this is their first time to try out a Smash game that has Ryu, that has Cloud, that has, some of these amazing third-party characters that blew us away when they came to Smash 4. So for a lot of people, these returning characters are completely new additions, and they're incredibly exciting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think clearly a lot of people missed out on Smash Brothers on Wii U. And in a way, it's been, so for those people, it's been 10 years since a console version of Smash Brothers. So this is big news, and as you mentioned, that gives them an even bigger roster that they're unfamiliar with. Even myself, I didn't spend too much time with Smash Brothers Wii U's DLC, so that gave me a larger amount of characters than it might seem at first, of newcomers at least for me, because there were a lot of characters I weren't that familiar with, including their stages, like Umbra Clock Tower. That stage kind of still blows me away. Or it kind of entirely blew me away because I missed it. I pretty much entirely missed it originally. I played a match on it and I called it a day. Called it a year even. So yeah, so I think Smash Bros. Ultimate really is tapping into something that we kind of missed to Smash Bros. 4. Because for as great as Smash Bros. 3DS sold, and for as great as it was given the platform, it was Smash Bros. on 3DS, and it's not. That's not how I want to play Smash Bros. I think that's not how a lot of people want to play the game.
As much as I liked Smash on 3DS, I think I took it to E3 a couple years ago and played it with people around the show floor. It still feels like a portable Smash, whereas Ultimate, even though it is portable, makes zero compromises.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's a great way of putting it. And what a great way to end the year then in that case, right? With the Ultimate version of Smash Brothers, a game that celebrates all of gaming.
We can't follow that up, Andre.
Yeah, that's just how you can say.
You know what else couldn't follow that up? Katamari Damacy, because why the hell did Bandai Namco put it out on that day?
What were they thinking? I mean, maybe they were hoping for the kind of thing where, sometimes movie production companies will release a movie against a huge one that's completely opposite of it, like a family-friendly film on the movie of a more mature title, and it'll grab the audience that wasn't interested at all in the original. But I don't think they have that here. I think they're targeting kind of similar audiences. So, I mean, granted, I don't know the sales for Katamari Damacy, so maybe it did okay, but
It was charting, but I don't know. I mean, it's quite cheap. I think it's like $20, which is, that's quite a good price. But yeah, you're competing against Smash Bros. On a console where everyone wants to buy Smash Brothers.
Right.
So it's just such a bad time for it to release.
And you know what else the $20 can buy you is the DLC season pack or whatever for Smash Brothers. So, well, speaking of DLC, let's go ahead and move on to some of the news stories here, because some of the news pertains to the DLC for Smash, including the fact that we got the Joker revealed at the Game Awards here. More recently, though, we found out something that apparently was known before, but I think a lot of people overlooked, because I didn't even know about myself, is the fact that Mii Fighter DLC is coming to the game. It's similar to how it did on Wii U, for the same price of 75 cents per costume. Beyond this, we also got the announcement of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 coming to Nintendo Switch exclusively in 2019. And then tying it back to Sakurai news is the fact that he basically shot down any hopes of a Kid Icarus port on Switch, saying that he has no plans for a modern version of Kid Icarus Uprising. Specifically, he said a port seems unlikely, which I know, John, that's like a dagger to your heart, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I really wish there would be a port, because Uprising is a brilliant game, but it's just hindered by its control scheme. If it were comfortable to play, it'd probably be one of the best handheld games ever, but it's a shame. And I understand it, though, because it's a big game, and the flight sections in particular would be a lot to remaster, because they go by so fast, but they're also so detailed. So if they were to remake that in HD, it would be a big undertaking. And this game can keep you busy for years. Like the multiplayer component has tons and tons of weapons with tons of different outcomes and goddess powers. The menus sort of change with the story. There's so much going on, there's so much detail. This is a Sakurai game on the level of smashing content in some respects. When Sakurai makes a game, he goes all out and just puts as much content as he can into it. And in some sense, Uprising is like Smash but a shooter.
Yeah, I mean, I have it. I need to play through it, and a Switch port would be the easiest way to be like, well, time to play through it. I have this nice, easy way to do it now. And now it
Nice.
doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So it's like, well, it's time to break out the stand for the 3DS and play it eventually.
Oh, the stand, yeah.
Oh, I have it.
Everyone's favorite. I think the biggest announcements here is what we have to look forward to in 2019, being more about the Smash DLC and Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which was a big surprise. Like, I never expected that to come to the Switch, or I never expected another one, period, and to be a Switch exclusive. Like, that is big news.
Yeah, like the Switch logo followed by the Marvel logo. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, one red logo to another.
And what a move. Marvel's been on a tear recently. The MCU is incredibly popular, and it's just a really, really shrewd business decision by Nintendo to partner with Marvel at this point in time.
It is.
And the X-Men are in this. Like, they've been really dodgy with the X-Men license. Like, technically they can be in games, and I think they've always been able to. But then you look at games like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which just don't even reference them. So to see, like, Wolverine sort of showcasing this trailer feels like a big deal.
It has a weird pedigree to it. Then it's a series that hasn't been around for quite a long time. So here's hoping it's good. I mean, a multiplayer action RPG, sure, let's do it.
I agree, Derek. I think it's a good way to kind of wrap up our look at 2018, hoping Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is good. However, we're not quite done yet, because I want to get your guys' final verdict now on 2018 in general. Now that we've gone over the whole year, how are you feeling about it now? If you had to give it a letter grade 2, what would you give Nintendo in 2018 in general?
I would probably give it a solid B. Like, maybe nothing that... Like, until the end of the year, nothing that really just blows away expectations, but a good, solid, continuous line of games to play. Like, you might have played them before, you might not have played them before, but there's always something to play as we went through 2018. Maybe not the stuff you wanted, like John had to wait how long for Dark Souls Remastered. Not exactly Nintendo's fault, but I don't know exactly what happened there. But you still had a lot of consistent games to play, and the way they supported a lot of their games, like they supported Kirby throughout, they supported Mario Tennis Aces throughout, they supported all this stuff, and it just it really made it feel like, even though it wasn't the biggest news or the biggest games at all times, you had a solid mix. Then you can sort of catch up on last year, play a bunch of new stuff that you might have missed out this year, and I don't know, it felt solid.
Yeah, I think people forget what a drought is.
Yeah.
the Wii U had droughts. Waiting from the Wii U's launch until Pikmin 3, that was a drought. There was barely anything to play. On the Switch, there is always something to play.
There's too much to play.
Yeah.
There's far too much to play. Every week it feels like there's more and more to play, and it's to the point where I can go on the eShop and just find like 20 games I want to buy right now, but I shouldn't, because I don't have time for them.
Yeah.
So I feel I agree with Derek. A solid B. It's not Nintendo's best lineup, but for the actual console, there is always something to play, and there's always something fun to play.
If 2017 was an A+, which is what I would have given it, by the way, I would have to agree with both Derek and John that 2018 is definitely a B. It's slightly above average, but not crazy. Pokemon Let's Go was a fantastic game towards the end of the year. We got Diablo 3, which again I said I love. We obviously got Smash Ultimate, which everyone on the team loves, but we also got Mega Man 11. We got the first good Mario Party in a decade. We got Luigi's Mansion on the 3DS. I mean, every month had at least one really good release. We got Dragon Ball FighterZ, I'm just looking back at the list right now and thinking, holy crap, there was something great to play every single month. Sonic Mania Plus, which, yeah, it's an add-on, but Sonic Mania was just such a good game that I played through it again in July. We got the Octo expansion for Splatoon. Like Derek was saying, we had continued support for Kirby throughout the year. We got Fortnite, which is the biggest game in the world right now.
Right.
And we had another magic port from Panic Button with Wolfenstein 2. Again, it wasn't on the order of magnitude that 2017 was, but it was a good, solid year. I had a lot to play. There was never a time where my Switch was collecting dust.
Yeah, I think you pretty much said it. I think it was a above average year, while not, blowing away expectations. So I would actually probably come in just a little bit lower than you guys. I am probably adjusting for my inherent tropical freeze bias, in which case any year with tropical freeze would be an instant A+. I would give it probably a B- overall. I think it was a solid year for Nintendo Switch. They did focus a lot on ports. I enjoyed revisiting a lot of them though. I thoroughly enjoyed Tropical Freeze again. Especially now it looks a little bit sharper on Switch without the load times. Even Captain Toad, I think, is a better game on Switch, and it sounds like that's the case for Hyrule Warriors as well. A game that doesn't speak to me much, but it seems like it might if you are into that series. And then, of course, capping it with Smash Bros. Ultimate was just fantastic. Like, I had a thoroughly great time with that game, even if the single-player campaign let me down a little bit. I play Smash for multiplayer, and that delivered in spades. So yeah, for me, B- on the whole, if I had to compare. And again, coming hot off of last year, it's tough to match up when you have, a genre-defining Zelda and one of the best, for me, Mario games that they've ever made. So I don't expect that every year, but I still think they had a really good year without having, strong Zelda or Mario representation, or core Mario representation. So that brings us to the end of the discussion. There is just one more thing I want to go over real quick. I don't think we'll talk about too much, but I think we'll say that for 2019. But it's a list I came up with of some notable omissions from Nintendo in 2018 that we all came up with. So first off, no sign of Bayonetta 3. Still no sign of Pikmin 4. We don't know what Retro's game is yet. It could be Star Fox Grand Prix, but we don't know for sure. But we haven't heard much about that game either, if it exists. Metroid Prime 4, nothing as well. No Super Nintendo games on Nintendo Switch Online, which was promised when they revealed the Switch in January, last year's January. Still nothing there. And then, of course, no sign of an N64 Classic or any other classic systems yet beyond the NES and SNES's re-releases. So we'll discuss all that in our upcoming 2019 discussion, which is just stay tuned for, because we'll be talking about everything coming up, including games we know about, games we don't, and other expectations and predictions we have for Nintendo in that year. So thanks for watching, and of course stay tuned to GameXplain for tons more coming up on 2019 and everything else Nintendo as well. We'll catch you later. Bye.